The order. Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
A U.S. Senator asked the Secretary of Defense on the record if he'd authorized lethal force against American protesters. That was his entire answer. This wasn't a one-off moment. It was the end of a 3-minute exchange where he never said yes and never said no. Here's the full sequence.
We're not the first resort in our country to use them. So to get to the non-theoretical, have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%.
at law
Arrest those
enforcement
people,
officers.
throw them in the jail, 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's their job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today? It's a yes or no thing, authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man, list it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual, did you authorize them to do that?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They are there
so say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please, yes or no?
As I've said time and time again through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement,
do they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest?
who are trying to do their job, deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous administration.
So they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As we've stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily detain and hand over to ICE. But there's no arresting going on. And you know this better than you're trying to play political games. There's no arresting of U.S. personnel.
Of the U.S. military against members of the protest. Have you authorized U.S. military cyber tools to investigate people participating in these protests? Yes or no?
Certainly a no.
Detain protesters, dodged. Arrest citizens, dodged. Use cyber tools on them, not that I'm aware. 5 direct yes or no questions, 5 non-answers. And that's before the sentence that referenced something specific, a claim that a previous defense secretary was once asked to have troops shoot protesters in the legs, and refused. That's the moment that led straight into the hook you just heard. Away from Los Angeles, a different senator raised something just as pointed. Not about protesters, but about 4 decorated soldiers whose names were quietly stripped off military bases.
Of war in Richmond until a prisoner relief president, Andrew Johnson, gave her the Congressional Medal of Honor after the Civil War. Why did you decide that these 4 patriots were not worthy enough to have their names on a base?
Well, Senator, as you know, this was never about the names of the bases they were renamed to.
So you don't challenge the worthiness?
Restoring all bases to their original name, because we're not about erasing history.
Okay, you don't care about their military record. You wanted to restore the Confederate names. When you called the Gregg family to tell them that their dad's name was no longer going to be on the base, what was their reaction?
Senator, the Army notified them of that.
You didn't call any of the families, and I've spoken with the families, and the families were called by...
Includes that he saved 29 American lives, to include hovering backwards in a helicopter towards an enemy bunker where a wounded American was laying and saved that person, including after being taken fire himself. I know a little something about what it takes to fly a helicopter when you've been hit by enemy fire. That was heroic. I'd rather be associated with Mike Novosel.
She's not reading a talking point. She's speaking from what happened to her own body in a war zone. And her base, like the other 4, was still renamed back to its Confederate-era name. From bases named after the dead to a trillion-dollar system meant to defend the living, this is the exchange where the man asking for the money admitted something unexpected.
So let me tell you what I think we're facing here. You're talking about hundreds of ICBMs launched simultaneously, varying trajectories, MIRVs, so multiple reentry vehicles, thousands of decoys, hypersonic glide vehicles, all at once. And considering what the future threat might be, it might even be more complicated than that. And you're proposing spending not just $25 billion, but upwards of, I think CBO estimated this at least $500 billion, other estimates, $1 trillion.
That's not a critic talking. That's the secretary defending the budget about his own program. Next, a chart he presented as proof that fell apart the moment someone read the dates on it.
The chart shows it. The Army doubled its recruitment from November of 2024 to the previous November. The Navy, the same thing. The Navy's recruitment skyrocketed 80% from November of 2024 to the previous year. Mr. Secretary, what changed?
There was an election, Senator.
Why does that matter?
Because leadership matters, sir. Belief in your country matters. Having the back of your troops matters. Setting a clear mission matters. Ensuring that if troops are used, it's for a clear, defined mission. It's funding them properly. It's giving them the proper authorities to execute. Americans watch what happens with their political and military leadership. And in President Trump, they understand they have a commander-in-chief that has their back, that loves the country, that loves them. Our job has been to reflect that through the department by getting rid of all the distractions, by enforcing the basics, by getting back to standards and readiness. And as a result, we've seen a generation of young people stand up and say they want to serve under President Trump.
These numbers have steadily increased. As you said, you called it a tsunami. I mean, I call it the Trump bump because it did begin on one day, but every month since, we've seen those recruitments for the Army and the Navy, especially the best Navy recruitment in 20 years, the best Army recruitment in 15 years. How do we keep that up?
Well, sir, I think we keep that up by staying true to what we said we would do to those young Americans and their families. I wrote a book before I started this process, talking to a lot of vets and their families who are wondering whether they would recommend military service to the next generation. I hear from them and others who say, now we're willing to do that under this president's leadership. Staying true to who we are, staying true to the basics, the Constitution, their core mission, keeping them ready, funding them and supplying them properly, and then having their back, truly, matters. And I think by doing that and then emphasizing recruiting and the basics, I think we'll continue to be able to be on the right trajectory.
Mr. Secretary, I've never seen a Secretary of Defense that's so in tune with our soldiers, our sailors, our airmen and Marines as you. You've gone out and you're visiting with them, you're talking to them every single day. What kind of stories are you hearing, especially from our newest recruits? I mean, what are they telling you? What are they telling you specifically about why it matters?
Well, I'll start with those that are re-enlisting or they've been in for a while who say it's all changed. The entire environment's changed. The morale, the spirit. They feel the change. They feel the idea that if I'm given a job to do, I'll be given everything necessary to do it, the authorities to do it. I'm not being micromanaged. I know that my commander will have my back. And then the young people, it's just excitement about the possibility of serving under President Trump, of being a part of something greater than themselves, and knowing that that in the White House they've got a commander who will defend their interests.
It's really about the, as I said, I mean, as my colleague was talking about, an apolitical military. I mean, the wokeness, the radical transgender movement, the way the abortion travel mandates, the way the last administration politicized the military. There was a survey in 2023 that pointed this out, said that, and the Army released the survey in 2023 that claimed that young Americans' fear of discrimination drove away more recruits than wokeness. And wokeness was a big indicator too in that survey. Do you think those arguments still stand up today?
Senator, you make a great point. Every American wants to be treated like an individual, not because they're black or white or male or female, rich or poor, or because of some calculation of what we need more of or need less of, but simply, can you rise to the challenge of this job of service to your nation? That challenge inspires young people, and that's what we've seen.
Yeah, I think the Commander-in-Chief matters. Mr. Secretary, you matter. General, you matter. Thank you for your leadership. The facts speak for themselves. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Banks. Is there objection to putting a representation of the chart in the record at this point? Without objection, it'll be ordered.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Senator Reed.
I note that the chart starts in November 23 and goes to November 24, and President Biden was president through the entire period. So you're suggesting that the significant ramp-up took place immediately after the election day, which would have been 20 days of November 24?
He didn't backtrack when it was pointed out. He confirmed it on camera.
Senator, I don't accept your hypothetical because it's
That's hypothetical.
not a real
That's
one.
the question. You're the Secretary of Defense. Would you send troops to 15 cities? If the president said, do it, would you do it? 15 cities.
Again, Senator, it's a complete hypothetical lacking any context
Look,
at all.
You're the Secretary
And I refuse
of
to box
Defense.
myself in based on
Well, you
questioning
can
on a
refuse,
hypothetical.
but you're here asking for $1 trillion, and I want to know how you're going to spend it. And so my question is, if Donald Trump tells you to send troops to 15 American cities, are you going to spend the money and send the troops?
Look at what one
Thankfully.
afternoon produced. 5 direct questions about force against protesters, 0 direct answers. 4 Medal of Honor names removed from bases, families notified by the press instead of a phone call. A missile shield defender who isn't sure the physics works. A recruiting chart that credited an election that hadn't happened yet in the data shown, and a hypothetical about 15 American cities that was never actually ruled out. None of this needed dramatizing. It's all on the public record from one Senate hearing, June 18, 2025.